Hey, how's it going, everybody? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is something I've done for you guys, just for almost everybody out there. You should be able to load into single player with these settings and not have to change anything and be pushing the smoothest 90 FPS. Alright, this should work for online, offline, and if it's not, maybe all you need to do is turn off extra effects. You should be able to play this game on a 1650 Super and not worry about being able to play the game online. If you're having problems joining servers and you can't load in and you're getting kicked out right away and your content manager can't find out what's wrong and it's not giving you proper error messages to look at, try a different server. The amount of people that are trying to play big servers and do things like download or purchase programs that people are saying is going to make this game run better is nothing more than scams. It's nothing more than downloading something that might give you more FPS at the cost of a ton of input lag. For example, lossless scaling. It's not good technology to use when you're trying to play in a high pace environment and have your reactions be registered through your inputs. You want to be running the game native, which means for itself, how it is normally rendered. You don't need to come in here and try using FSR or turn down the render scale, or download a DLSS mod, or use frame generation. You shouldn't have to do any of this on this game for most graphics cards. So these settings are taken care of for you. I got the frame rate limiter at 90. We've lowered anti-aliasing for you guys. Sorry, the limiter's at 80. But I have the setting on in general patch here, which makes it try and hold a 90 instead of 80, so it's always going to be smooth. We're running upgraded AC textures. We're running full resolution post-processing, so you don't have any errors with your lights. We have maximum glare quality, so your AI headlights aren't flickering. We've got lighting effects up to 20 cars, so online in servers you're not going to be having graphical bugs with your headlights lighting up cars. Grass effects is off because you're probably mostly playing on modded maps where you really don't need it. We've got a couple other things turned off that you're not really going to see much of. And this should work. For the majority of people out there, these settings should work just fine for you. Fine to play the game without having to worry. And of course you can pick a post-process filter that you like, and you should just be able to load in, and we're gonna load in and see what the game looks like just in a random environment, in a random spot in a server online. Let's just go join something. Maybe it'll be a normal time of day, but we'll load in with these settings right now, and I'll show you that the game is going to look fine. And it's going to run fine. And if I turn off the FPS limiter, I'm probably going to get a couple hundred FPS with my PC. But the point is, if I'm getting a couple hundred, there should be no problem with some of you guys pushing 100, 150 FPS out of your lower tier cards. You don't need to have an insane graphics card to play this game online in high performance. Your resolution matters, everything matters. Right, but let's see what happens here. We'll be loaded in just a quick sec, and we'll see where we are in terms of performance. And then once you do this, I'll also show you guys what you want to look at in game for your performance while you're in that server or driving that car. Alright, so as we can see here, I do have a completely smooth, responsive game. My graphic settings are not too crazy at the moment. Nothing looks really amazing per se. But this is the game on these settings, right? These are really, really low settings. My FPS is totally locked perfectly. And what happens if I go to disable FPS limiter? I'm at 250 FPS in this server, sitting here at pits 260. The render stats graph is right with each other. And I got a 4080 Super, so you know what I'm saying? Like, you might only get a third of this FPS in an online server, right? But let me leave this and let me go into single player real quick. I don't know if you guys heard that guy yell outside, but I heard him. He might have picked up on the mic. It's just my neighborhood, man. It's just where we're at. You feel me? So now let's see the difference loading into a single player map. Just kind of by myself here. I think I might have the rain on now. I don't know, I'm not too sure. Again, don't mind the graphics not looking the best, but the main thing is that the game is running super good. And let's disable FPS limiter here. And yeah, we're sitting at well over 300 non-stop in single player, hitting 400 here in pits. What I'm trying to show you guys here is there's a big difference, right? So 400 in pits on single player practice, 200 to 250 in pits in a smaller traffic server. That means if I load up no hesi or push and P, I'm looking at 150 FPS. And that's just all server based. That's all game changes on the same settings. There's nothing to do with any settings that I'm changing, because we haven't changed any settings this entire video. This FPS difference is only from the different resources being used in the server, let alone driving with 9 other players and 40 traffic cars on your screen, right? So that's the difference here. It's not that you cannot run this game, it's that people are trying to run this game into the ground with the mods that they're using, the scripts they're using, the weather scripts they're using, the post-process filters they're using, the mods they're downloading, the graphics mods that are just non-existent, like DLAA mods and temporal anti-aliasing mods and reshade presets, killing the game one step at a time for yourself, making it worse and worse and worse, when for some reason these people are telling you that it's going to make your game better, but it's not. Anyways, guys, these settings that I'm running now for this type of FPS in 1080p on my graphics card on my PC in single player will be shared in the description, alright? And if you're still watching this video, this last little bit is just for you, because let's say, for example, you got a really low spec PC and it's not working out enough. Don't lower your shadow resolution, okay? All you really got to do is find a spot with the lights of the vehicles where you're happy with lowering the quality here a little bit. You can lower down your mirror resolution just a little bit, and you can keep everything else here the same. The next thing that you want to do on these low spec systems is just go ahead and disable extra effects. It is what it is. If you have to disable extra effects, you have to disable extra effects, right? Now let's see what happens if I load in now, again in single player, by myself in practice, and then in this lower spec server that I'm running. Let's see what the difference is now in terms of visuals and the performance, okay? So now what we can see here is my anti-aliasing is much worse. The game is now choppy, around the cars choppy, reflections choppy. So let's disable the FPS limiter, and now we are getting up to 550 FPS in single player at pits instead of the 400 that we were getting. And now let's go back to that online server and go back here and join with the same car in the same environment. And let's see the difference. Let's see how much FPS that we're going to hold at now while we're in pits in this car. I bet you it's going to be over 300. The point that I'm making today, again, just like the other few days here, is it's not just your settings or how your PC is running. It's not just because you have a 1650 or a 1050 or a 1080 or a 970, 980. It's also everything else that's incorporated into this game with all these mods. And that's where the real problem really lies. So as we load in here, we're just going to see what type of performance we're at while we're sitting in the pit. Let's take a look, disable FPS limiter, and hit Alt F5 again. And now again, we're just well over 300, non-stop well over 300 now. Sitting up to 350. Render time is really low, very small spikes in the graph. This is the smoothest I've seen my game in a long time. But again, are you okay with running the game like this? Are the graphics good enough for you? You know, it's totally up to you at the end of the day. And even though extra effects isn't on, it doesn't mean that you have to suffer that bad. You can still, if you're one of those guys that wants to raise up the cloud brightness and everything and make the game really bright and add some sun, you know, add some sun saturation or less. If you wanted to add a little bit of ambient light, you know, you can still do all this stuff, man. The game with extra effects off is still the same game. It's all the post-processing that's giving you all your nice bloom effects and all your nice lighting and everything. It's not just the settings. But one thing you need to know, if you're running like this, those light posts in the background are never going to look good, man. And that's just an issue, right? So there you go, guys. Settings will be in the description here. All you gotta do is check or uncheck extra effects and the couple things that I just showed you. Have a good day, everybody. Take care. Stay gaming. It's not about what you got. It's about how you set it up. And if you set it up right, you'll get more performance without having to waste money.